The Magic Presence. Chapter 4. Divine Romance. Now, I am going to touch upon very important things which are sacredly personal, Saint Germain explained, speaking directly to Nada, Pearl, Rex, and Bob Singleton. I do not wish you to feel that I intrude upon your sacred, private affairs, nor that I take advantage of you because of the power I possess and use. However, there are certain things that I must make unmistakably plain to you. Rex and Pearl are twin rays from the same divine flame. The flame comes forth from the heart of God, the great life consciousness of the universe, the great central sun. When you, the mighty I Am Presence, will to come forth into an individualized focus of conscious dominion and use the creative word I Am, your first individual activity is the formation of a flame. Then you, the individualized focus of the mighty I Am Presence, begin your dynamic expression of life. This activity we term self-consciousness, meaning the individual who is conscious of his source and perfection of life, expressing through himself. Only the self-conscious individual has all the attributes and creative power of the mighty I Am Presence. Only he can know who and what he is and express the fullness of the creative power of God whenever he decrees by the use of the words I Am. The outer human part of this activity is what we call the personality. It is but the vehicle through which perfection should be expressed into the outer substance of the universe. Within the pure God flame is a breath that pulsates constantly. This great fire breath is a rhythmic outpouring of divine love, its three attributes being love, wisdom, and power in action. These pour out constantly into the infinite sea of pure electronic light. This light is the universal substance or spirit out of which all forms are composed. It is intelligent, mark you, because it obeys law through the command of the individual who says or is conscious of, I am. These two words are the acknowledgement and release of the power to create and bring forth into outer existence whatever quality follows that acknowledgement. For intelligence to act, there must be intelligence to be acted upon, and the universal substance, being like a photographic film, takes the record of whatever quality the individual imposes upon it through his thought, feeling, and spoken word. The words I am, whether thought, felt, or spoken, release the power of creation instantly. Make no mistake about this. Intelligence is omnipresent, and it is within the electronic light. The first fiat of creation that went forth into infinity was, let there be light. And then creation took place, for out of this primal light comes all manifested form. The light is the central point of life or energy within every atom, composing the substance from which comes all physical manifestation. I speak of the atom because the lower rate of vibration composing the physical manifestation is the atomic structure, which we have under consideration. When you consciously envelop or hold any person, place, condition, or thing in the dazzling white light, You are penetrating, going through the atomic structure into the electronic, wherein there is no imperfection. In this use of the light, one penetrates the structure of imperfection, and that on which the attention is centered is then brought forth perfect, not only as the Father sees it, but it is the Father's perfection expressed. You, as the Son, are given choice, commanded to choose and direct where the energy, which is the activity of the light, shall go. It is imperative to have your conscious thought, your firm attention on what is to be accomplished, in order to give the needed direction to the activity of this mighty force, which it is your right and privilege to use. When you use the dazzling white light, you are actually accepting the electronic structure which is then present in manifestation. For you are acting from the plane of action of perfect manifestation. Your desire, when held steady, unwaveringly, becomes the conscious thought directing, for you cannot have a desire without conscious thought in the desire. Great strides have been made in the higher use of the light at the inner levels in the past 15 years. Your conscious great adherence to the light shows you are ready for its highest use. If in your use of the light you will know the perfection of what you wish is already present in manifestation, the moment you start the dynamic action of the light, it will remove all uncertainty in your mind as to the positive assurance of the manifestation or what you wish taking form in your physical use. In clothing or visualizing any person, place, object, or condition with the illuminated figure of Jesus Christ or the figure of any other ascended master, you are really unclothing, penetrating through the atomic garment, where you see, recognize, and accept the perfection you now want present in form, for you have swept aside all imperfection in the action. The student should see and feel his body as if composed of pure white flame, sending out long rays of light. The flame is your real self, the mighty I Am Presence, the full Christ perfection. The rays shooting forth are the divine mind, or love in action. These rays are what follow your conscious direction, carrying your thought and producing magical results when consciously directed, held firm by determined, unwavering conscious attention. The light you thus visualize is the electronic substance the Hindus call prana. This light is always directed by thought, but it is imperative that we learn to control and direct it consciously. This conscious control and direction is how the ascended masters accomplished such marvelous results. Divine love is a presence, an intelligence, a principle, a power, an activity, a light, and a substance. When we command divine love to go forth and do anything, we are setting into motion the highest form of action, the most powerful force. This, however, does not require terrific effort. In fact, it requires just the opposite. It is a calm, steady, determined, conscious knowing. As this becomes a fixed consciousness, an absolute certainty in one's conscious awareness, he will find more and more instantaneous response to his demand and command. Never be afraid to demand and command anything that is a universal principle. Make no mistake. The light, the universal electronic substance, is for your use, is at your command. Your mighty I Am Presence is a self-conscious being, of which your outer consciousness is but a fragmentary part. Therefore, you can talk to your mighty Master within as you would to a loving Father who possessed limitless light, love, riches, power, health, happiness, or anything you could desire. For the more you consciously use this mighty presence of the I Am, the quicker will it respond to you. Divine love can control all manifestation. If in your use of divine love you are conscious that it has within itself all love, wisdom, and power of this mighty I Am Presence, the fact is that you qualify this principle which you command with whatever quality you are conscious of as being within it. You are given dominion of everything in the air, in the earth, in the fire, and in the water through the command of this mighty universal principle which is always at your conscious service and for your use. Love, divine mind, and prana are one in the static or still state. Through the conscious action of the individual, divine love, consciously directed, becomes love, wisdom, and power in action. This is why divine love, consciously directed to accomplish things, produces such marvelous results. It becomes instantaneous and all-powerful as soon as the outer consciousness ceases to limit it. Now to return to the explanation of the rays. The mighty God flame breathing within itself projects two rays into the great sea of pure electronic light. This intelligent light substance becomes the clothing, as it were, for these rays of the mighty I Am Presence. Each ray has all the attributes of the Godhead within it, and no imperfection can ever enter into or register upon it. The individualized flame sends down into the ray a focal point or spark, forming a heart center upon which gathers the electronic light substance, creating the electronic body. Around this, it sends out rays of lesser intensity that form an aura, or force field. This force field is sometimes referred to as the causal body, and within it are deposited the results of all constructive effort during and between each embodiment. All electronic substance that has been used constructively by the personal self through physical experience is also deposited within it. Through it, the God flame can send out into space a greater release of its own life wave. The causal body, through the personality's journey in physical experience, becomes an ever-expanding sun and a self-sustained outpouring of limitless ideas, love, wisdom, and power, flowing out forever on rays of love to the rest of this universe. This sun is in reality a reservoir of constructively used energy and substance, gathered through human experience and drawn upward so it becomes the glory of the God flame, which, mark you, never loses its individual identity in the universe. This is how the beautiful, joyous, perfect, limitless activity of life and creation goes on, ever expanding its perfection. The universal substance and energy which the personal self uses discordantly accumulates in the atmosphere around the physical body of both the personality and the earth. Periodically, it builds a vortex that can only be purified and returned to the great sea of the universal light by the activity of the fire element. The purifying process of the fire element acting within the flesh of the human body to consume wrong qualities sometimes produces a sensation of pain if wrongly qualified by the personality. But if the fire element acts within the flesh of the human body to vivify and energize, it produces the sensation of peace, exhilaration, and ecstasy. If acting in the atmosphere of the earth and within nature to purify, it sometimes produces volcanic and cataclysmic conditions. When acting to vivify and energize in nature, it produces marvelous growth and pure, rarefied air which vitalizes all. The personal self of every individual is endowed with the power of choice as to what it wishes to think, to feel, to create, and experience. If one uses all the substance and energy of his being constructively, then peace, expansion, joy, opulence, and glory are the return unto life for the outpouring of its gifts. If one choose and create otherwise, his misery and destruction return into himself and destroy his body. The personal self is a custodian of life, of ideas, and of light substance, pure electronic substance. The very fact that one is in existence as a human being is an open acknowledgement to those who are able to read the book of life that he has decreed to come into individual existence, and accepted of his own choice the responsibility of being a creator. Everyone must carry the responsibility of his world. If he is created because of the appetites of the physical body, things and conditions he does not enjoy, he has all power to purify and dissolve them by the right use of the fire element, of which divine love is the highest, most powerful, and eternal activity. If he desire to set his personal self and world in order, and therefore have peace and create a world of joy, perfection, and glory, he must look to his electronic body for the pattern of his divine perfection, for it cannot and never will be found anywhere else. There and there only can the personal self ever find security, rest, satisfaction, joy, and the fulfillment of every constructive desire. For in the fullness of the presence are the things that you desire. This perfect, eternal electronic body abides from 12 to 50 feet above the physical body of every individual, unless he be of a very low or destructive type, when it withdraws still farther away. This is the Son, S-O-N, and Son, S-U-N, of God. For the electronic body of every individualized flame of God is a dazzling, blazing light of such intensity that the human eyes can only gaze upon it for the fraction of a second. By adoration to the God flame and purification of its instrument, the personal self, the outer activity of the mind and physical body becomes raised in vibratory attunement to see the electronic body clearly within the blazing light of the force field around it. The physical body, or actual atomic structure of the flesh, is the densest form and is the record of the outer activity of the mind. In certain phases of religious explanation concerning this electronic body, it has been referred to many times as the guardian angel. It is all of that and more when really understood and comprehended. To it, the personal self should look for the supply of every good thing as a child looks to its mother. All that is within the God flame flows into the electronic body, where the tremendous power and intensity of the light of the mighty I Am Presence is stepped down to a degree that can act in the vibratory octave of the physical world. From the heart center of the electronic body flows a stream of life essence or liquid light, which enters the physical body through the pineal gland and fills the nerve channels. This liquid white fire flows through the nerves as blood does through the veins. This beats the heart, moves the muscles of the body, and enables one to walk or raise the hand. It is also the energizing light within the brain cells. The life stream of the body has often been referred to as the silver cord. So it is, for the stream of liquid white light pulsates continually through the flesh body by way of the nervous system. At so-called death, the God Presence withdraws the stream of liquid light and the flesh disintegrates. The reason the race continues to experience so-called death is because of the waste of this electronic light through emotional excesses, instead of retaining it within the physical brain and body to rebuild the cellular structure and supply the motive power for the entire body. Mankind does not like to hear this truth, but the waste of the life energy through uncontrolled feeling is the cause of the disintegration of all physical bodies outside of violence. If one used the inner sight to observe the life stream of a strong, healthy child, he will see the nerves of the body full of this dazzling liquid white light. Then, if he observe the body of the same child when ill or fatigued, he will see the light greatly diminished. In an old body, it is still more greatly dimmed, and if one wished to observe the soul passing out of the body at so-called death, he will see this life stream entirely withdrawn at the top of the head, until it becomes only a thin thread of light which finally breaks. At that moment the heart ceases to beat. Again, let us return to the explanation of the rays. Nada and Bob Singleton are two other rays of an individualized God flame. Whether you choose to accept this wonderful fact depends entirely upon yourselves. I do not even suggest, but knowing the secret feelings of your hearts as I do, it is my privilege to disclose this much. It will explain some of the feelings which you have not understood. My sincere hope is that all four of you will be able to raise your bodies in this life with the outer attention consciously directed to that point. With the assistance which we can give at the proper time, you will be able to accomplish the final attainment. I feel your gratitude, for which I thank you. In answer to your thought of why this glorious privilege is yours, I want you to know that it is because of previous growth. Your own indwelling mighty I Am Presence commands it for your safeguard and illumination. I shall now give you the explanation of the law by which you are able to illumine, raise the physical body, and express the full dominion, victory, and freedom of the ascended masters. The seed within man and woman is only intended for the sacred office of creating a body by which another soul may come into physical embodiment, At all other times, the glorious light within the body should be raised into the top of the head and allowed to flow up in adoration unto the mighty I Am Presence. Then, by uplifted thoughts and feelings, one can do creative work at the mental level through glorious ideas, ideals of art, music, invention, discovery, research, and the creation of beauty and harmony of every description through a service that blesses humanity and therefore the individual who gives it. Instead of wasting the wonderful liquid light, the marvelous God-given essence of life, in sex, sensation, and excesses, whereby the body becomes decrepit, flabby, crippled, the face lined, the eyes dull, the whole structure stooped and feeble, the brain inactive, the sight and hearing impaired, and the memory not able to function. This energy should be rightly used in wonderful, idealistic, creative activity. In such constructive consciousness and accomplishment, the physical body would remain eternally youthful and beautiful. The brain and faculties keen, alert, and active, and the whole physical expression would become the image and likeness of the living God, truly the temple of the Most High. Your bodies are now calling for their accustomed rest. The chambers are in readiness. Sleep until you awaken. I commend you to the embrace of your glorious, mighty I Am Presence. Rest in peace. We returned to our beautiful sleeping chambers where all was in readiness. The most delightful fragrance of roses permeated everything, and we certainly never rested upon more comfortable couches, nor enjoyed such divine repose. Rex was very happy to find that Pearl was the twin ray of his own God flame, and in speaking of her after he and I had gone to our room, said, "Ever since we first met, I have felt a strange attraction to Pearl, and whenever in her presence I am always conscious of a sense of quiet contentment. Our blessed Saint Germain has certainly explained all most wonderfully, and I am deeply grateful." In giving this explanation to me some months ago, I replied, he said to me, "The beautiful love of one ray for its twin ray is tremendously uplifting, exalting, wonderful, and infinitely more joyous than when the great current of liquid fire, the life stream of the universe, is turned downward and becomes passion. This mighty concentrated electronic force or life essence is a liquid light which flows wherever the attention directs it. The mind's attention is pulled this way and that by thought, feeling, sight, and hearing, in fact by the pull of all the physical senses. The true understanding of what mighty power is at your command when you have full control over your attention cannot be overestimated. The liquid electronic essence is this mighty energy, and it energizes whatever the attention rests upon. If one be doing intense mental work, the liquid light stays within the brain and flows forth through the center of the forehead between the eyes as a ray of light. And if the inner sight be opened, one can easily and always see it. If one be speaking, this pure mighty energy flows forth through the throat center as sound. If one be pouring out divine love, this liquid light flows forth as a radiance from the heart center. If one be sending out intense feeling, it flows forth from the solar plexus. Here it also performs the function of digesting the food. If one have the inner sight opened, he will see a stream of light pouring out from whatever center the energy is being used at the moment. This pure liquid light becomes colored by whatever quality the personality imposes upon it through the thought, feeling, and spoken word. Here lies one's responsibility as a creator, and the means by which he can correct or purify whatever has been wrongly created. If this life essence is released at the generative center for sex pleasure instead of building a new physical embodiment for another soul, the process of disintegration of the physical body is started, and the journey to self-generated dissolution of the body begins. It matters not what human opinion says to the contrary. This is the inevitable, inexorable law of physical embodiment, and there is no person in the universe who can change it. This is the principal reason for the condition that is called death within the race as a whole. Let anyone who disagrees with this truth compare the brain and body of one who conserves this liquid light over a period of a few years with that of one who has wasted it over a similar period, and he will not need any other proof. The conservation of this liquid electronic light and the conscious lifting of it by adoration to the mighty I Am Presence and by the power of the mind through the control of the attention is the way of perfection and is safe, sound, sensible, and reasonable. It can have only harmonious, constructive results to the mind, the body, and world of the individual. This is not a system of repression by the power of the human will. That is and will always be disastrous. For to dam up a highly concentrated energy and then by thought, feeling, and suggestion keep driving it more of it to that point through thinking upon it in secret must of necessity cause an explosion of some kind to take place. That method never was the original spiritual teaching of anyone who really knew and understood the truth and the law concerning it. Humanity has not, except to a very small degree, understood this truth, or thousands would have become ascended master long before now. In order to rise out of the degradation, misery, poverty, and disaster in which the mass is now wallowing, the individual must come to a clear understanding of this law in the outer activity of his mind. Through his conscious knowledge and control of the emotions, he shuts the door to the most dangerous and subtle suggestions from the psychic plane, which is the most unrecognized enemy and vicious activity of the sinister force in this world. The feeling nature of mankind is a reservoir of energy, and it is impossible for thoughts to become things until one propels them forth into the sea of electronic substance by feeling. As we retired, the glorious illumination of our room faded out, and we were soon fast asleep. Such heavenly rest none of us had ever before experienced. We must have slept fully 12 hours when the most glorious tones of a bell sounded through the chamber, and the dazzling illumination gradually again filled the room. When we had bathed and donned our robes, we found a most delicious breakfast awaiting, served on an exquisite crystal-top table which neither of us had noticed as being there before. On it was food of which we had never heard, more delicate and delicious than can ever be served by any culinary artist of this world. The dishes looked as if they were made of mother of pearl with heavy gold bands, and the rest of the service was made of wonderfully semi-transparent metal with pearl handles. We dined and were discussing the wonders we had been experiencing when the table with its entire beautiful service disappeared before our eyes. Again, the sound of the beautiful bell filled the chamber. We went to the reception room and there found Nada and Pearl awaiting us. They looked radiantly beautiful. Youth always responds marvelously to the mighty magic presence, but in this change a transformation had taken place that was more than usual with both of them, revealing a radiance which had never been in either of them before. Both showed the awakening of a great love, and while they had experienced the same wonderful rest as we, yet they had undergone an even more wonderful change. We had only been talking a few moments when the great doors to the crystal chamber opened. We entered and found 12 more ascended masters present, making 24 with those whom we had already contacted while in this retreat. Saint Germain presented us to them, and I noticed one lady and one gentleman around whom the light was dazzling, for their radiance shone brighter than the others. They came directly over to Nada and Rex, and with indescribable grace greeted them both. "Beloved brother and sister," said the lady, "we come directly from the sphere in which your dearly beloved mother sojourns. It is not her home, but she is there for certain training. You did not know it at the time, but if you could have looked within the casket before your mother was supposedly placed in the sarcophagus, you would not have found her physical body. We were 2 of the 12 present who were with the mighty Master Saint Germain when the assistance was given that enabled her to be raised into her eternal electronic body. She wishes you to know this, now that you have become aware of and have accepted the great Ascended Master's way of life. These, our blessed Ascended brothers, have found that each of you can be given the necessary assistance to raise your bodies as she has done, when the humanly accustomed time of your earthly pilgrimage is finished. The 3rd night here, she will come to you, as we do now. Tonight, Nada and her father will have a very happy surprise." Again, the bell sounded, and our beloved Saint Germain announced that all were to enter the electrical laboratory. Passing into that room, we found the marvelous atomic accelerator aglow with great currents of light. He asked Daniel Rayborn to take his place in the chair. The 2 radiant masters stood at opposite points in the circle, one in front, the other behind Rayborn, Saint Germain standing within the circle of 21. Again he asked me to watch the process closely. In an instant, the light within Rayborn's body began to increase, and his face revealed great joy. Within the light around him were particles of substance continually rising, as the impurities in his physical body were thrown off and consumed. This lasted about 10 minutes, when I saw his hair gradually return to its natural color, a dark brown, and his face become radiant and youthful. The light within the chair gradually disappeared, and the laboratory was again as usual. Saint Germain extended his hand to Mr. Rayborn, and he stepped down lightly as if scarcely conscious of any weight. For more than an hour, the radiance about his face and the brilliant light within his eyes was most remarkable. "Words can never describe the marvels I have experienced," he said, turning to us, "and for the first time in my life I am beginning to know the real meaning of life. We do not dream in the unascended state what a small fraction of the mighty principle of life we appropriate and use in our ordinary, mundane experience." "Each of you," said Saint Germain, "has been tremendously uplifted through the powerful radiation of this marvelous atomic accelerator." We returned to the crystal chamber and noticed the chairs to seat 24 persons had been placed around the large crystal-top table. The 2 radiant masters took their seats at the ends, our beloved master in the middle and Nada opposite him. "Focus your attention upon Bob Singleton," he said, addressing Nada, "and request him to come to us." Almost instantly, a soft rose-colored light enveloped all, accompanied by a most delicate fragrance of roses. In a few moments, a beautiful blue formed around the rose-colored circle. This was followed by a radiance of gold around the blue. Then we heard a sound like the swish of wings, and Bob Singleton, in a tangible, visible body, stood upon the table before us, accompanied by the 2 radiant masters who before had been sitting at the ends of the table. I had not noticed that they had left until their return with Bob. As he stood there, I could see his form becoming more and more dense, until presently his body was as tangible as my own. Saint Germain arose and extended his hand to Bob as he stepped lightly from the table. We all rose to our feet, and Nada looked steadily at him an instant as the rest were about to offer their greetings. Bob put his arms around her and held her close to his heart. "My precious love," he said, "I have always seen you in my dreams. When you came to the mine, I knew you as my angel love, but you seemed so far beyond me, I did not even dare to hope. Now, to hold you in my arms is the most divine thing I know. In the glorious freedom of this inner body, I see the light of divine love between your blessed brother and my dear sister. My gratitude is boundless." Daniel Rayborn stepped forward with extended hands and gave his blessing to this great and divine love, then turning to Pearl and Rex, gave them his blessing also, saying that in his highly attuned state he realized all more clearly. "Will I be able to remember this," said Bob, turning to Saint Germain, "when I return to my body?" And he replied, "You shall do so if you wish. The privilege granted you at this time is a very rare occurrence, for you are clothed in a temporary body. However, it is just as tangible as your own physical body and as the physical bodies of the others here." Everyone came forward and congratulated the happy lovers, the Ascended Masters making a connecting link through which assistance could be given at any time in the future in case of need. It was then we were told that the two Radiant Masters were also twin rays. The Ascended Masters present knew Bob from contact with him in the higher spheres, but he did not retain the memory of his acquaintance with them. When Saint Germain stepped forward, Bob would have kneeled before him. "No, Bob," he said, raising his hand in protest. "Your own indwelling I Am presence is just as great as the Ascended Masters who have found the way before you to complete mastery and freedom. To it belong your first love, recognition, and worship at all times. Never forget that. I am your elder brother, that is all, and it is my privilege to assist you to that same freedom. It is at the command of your own mighty I Am presence that you are enabled to be here in this manner tonight. It is always a joy to be of any assistance that the great law of your being permits. I wish you to come tomorrow night in this same manner, that you may meet your sweetheart's mother, for she will also be here at that time. Much is being done which you do not now understand, but your beautiful love and trust is opening wide the gates to blessings of which you do not dream. However, the full understanding will come as you progress. Arrange your work at the mine so as to retire promptly at 9 o'clock. Now you must return to your physical body. He then asked us all to form a circle about Bob. In a few moments, the radiant circle of light in rose, blue, and gold again enveloped us. The two radiant masters took their places beside Bob, and in an instant all three disappeared. The rest of us walked about in the crystal chamber, and in about 20 minutes the radiant ones reappeared in our midst. Never in my whole experience have I ever experienced such wonderful joy and unspeakable divine love as radiated from every one present. This finished our work until the following evening. The 12 ascended masters who had appeared last formed into a circle and in a few moments disappeared from view. The remaining 6, after extending to us their blessing, vanished before our eyes. we all gathered around our beloved Saint Germain in boundless gratitude for the marvels we had witnessed and the limitless blessings we had received. My beloved students, he explained, do you not see how much easier, how much more joyous it is to rise above all human earthly limitations and produce whatever you require direct from the universal substance, which is the eternal, omnipresent supply of everything you can ever desire? Each one of you who has been requested to come here can learn to do this much sooner than you dare to imagine in the outer activity of your mind. The time required to attain this mastery is tremendously shortened when the individual comes to the understanding that his physical body is the temple of the mighty I Am Presence, the God of the universe, and that the very life energy which moves his body across the floor is the Most High, living God. This is the Christ, the only begotten Son, God in action. However, I find many who get tremendous results by thinking of it as the ascended Master within, or the mighty I Am Presence to whom they can talk. This presence is a glorious blazing light. You can see its light within your outer mind and body, its visible, tangible presence, resting a short distance above your physical body. You can speak to it and receive its definite answers, perfect direction, and wondrous revelation. You can thus always be God-directed if you will only contact your mighty I Am Presence close enough and often enough. Its mighty wisdom, intelligence, and liquid light will flow ceaselessly into whatever you wish to accomplish, if you will but hold your attention steadfast upon the mighty Presence first, and whatever you wish to attain second. Then follow this up by determined, persistent insistence. Such almighty power and intelligence is absolutely invincible and can never fail. Human doubt and fear, which are subtle feelings, can keep you from accepting this mighty I Am Presence and its perfection if you let it. But the Presence never did and never can fail. This is a simple formula for quick, certain attainment. You cannot possibly estimate what tremendous advancement is possible in a short time. If you will, because you can, consciously, continually, and completely accept the wonderful love, intelligence, and power of the mighty I Am Presence, whose energy is flowing and acting through your mind and body every moment of the 24 hours. There is one point that real students and those who wish attainment should know unmistakably, and that is concerning desire. No one can ever attain mastery over human creation and the ascension by an attitude of desirelessness, because without desire for attainment would not be possible. Remember forever that all constructive desire is God in action in you. For if desire were not within the God principle, manifestation would never have taken place. Until the Godhead desired manifestation, it could not come forth. The activity of desire is the forward moving or expanding motion of life itself and can never be dispensed with. Life is perpetual motion, and the sustaining of that activity is all constructive desire. However, be careful that you discriminate between desire and human appetite, for they are as far apart as light and darkness. Appetite is but an accumulation of energy, qualified by human feeling, through the formation of habit in the sense organism only, and has nothing whatsoever to do with desire within God's life. For all that abides within life is pure, perfect, and constructive. Constructive desire is eternally existent within life. It is impossible to progress or express life without some form of desire. It is the student's duty to be alert and on guard, discriminating always as to his motive for doing anything. And here he needs to be severely honest with himself, to watch his feeling in the motive. For many times the outer activity of the mind tries to make one think he is doing a thing from the standpoint of reason, when all the time he is doing it to satisfy a feeling instead. As yet, the majority of the race are but creatures of feeling, for it controls them 90% more of the time than does the wisdom of the mind. That is why they are principally creatures of physical appetites instead of God-directed masters of circumstance and dominion. Until the student takes his feeling body in hand and definitely controls it by the love, wisdom, and power of his mighty I Am Presence, he cannot and never will be dependable, nor can he make permanent progress to freedom. The mighty I Am Presence stores its force in the emotional body or feeling body, and depends on this energy to accomplish the fulfillment of the perfect divine plan of life. Everyone knows the difference between a constructive and destructive idea, and the difference between the feeling of love, peace, and calm, and that of discord. So the simplest mind, even a child, innately knows the difference between the divine way of life, a God desire, and the human appetite for self-gratification. We are commanded to choose the divine way of life, and if we do not compel the sense appetites to obey that command, then we must suffer, experiencing chaos and destruction until we set our own world in order, so that it blends with the great, orderly, harmonious movement of the whole. When one wishes to give way to his own feeling of resistance, rather than still that feeling and replace it by peace, he destroys himself, mind, body, and world, because the law is that whatever discordant thought and feeling is sent forth by a human being, it must first vibrate through the brain and body of the sender before it can reach into the rest of the universe. After swinging out, it begins a return journey to its creator. While coming back, it gathers more of its kind, and that becomes the accretion of which the individual's world is composed. This is the law, and it is immutable. When the great life energy within the physical body is used constructively, the result is the greatest possible joy, happiness, and accomplishment, not only to ourselves, but to every person, place, condition, and thing we control. Then the mighty I Am Presence, through the vehicle of the personal self, manifests divine love in action. And the firmer and more concentrated the attention, the more powerful the action, and the more marvelous the results. Now, all go to your well-deserved rest. The all-powerful illumination and infinite peace of the Most High God attend each, for I shall have much to say to you at the close of our work tomorrow night. Let everyone remain in his bath not less than 15 minutes. It will be especially prepared. Then there will be food awaiting you. With my peace, strength, and love, I enfold you. And to your own mighty I Am Presence I commend you all. Good night. We went to our respective chambers and found everything aglow with the vivifying life of the mighty I Am Presence. The very atmosphere was charged with the pure electronic light. Upon entering my bath, I was delighted by the very living presence within the water. It was like the magic caress of the mother of all life. Every atom in my body was quickened into that radiant peace that passeth all understanding. When we were ready for the meal, we stood before the mirror and scarcely knew ourselves. Each looked and felt glowing and radiant. Our repast was heavenly, and after finishing it, we retired at once. At 5 o'clock the following evening, we were awakened by the beautiful tone of the etheric bells sounding through our chambers, and we noticed that the radiance of the light about us was much more dazzling than usual. It had been so quickened within our own bodies that its radiance emanated from our hands with great vividness. The food provided was of the rarest quality and was like concentrated essence. There was a creamy golden liquid that seemed almost like liquid light. As we partook of it, I said to Rex, "You know, some unusually powerful experience must be about to take place, and we are given this liquid so the body will not be burdened with unnecessary substance." As we finished, a small crystal tumbler about the size of a wine glass appeared on the table before each, and with it came a slip of paper on which were the words, "Drink without fear." The substance in the glasses looked like pure electronic energy. I picked up my glass and drained it without stopping. At first it seemed as though my being would never stop expanding. And then came a sense of being lifted to tremendous heights. I thought I was going to lose consciousness, but I did not. I soon became adjusted to it, and then I looked at Rex and saw him standing in a flame of blazing light. His eyes were closed, and his body swaying as though about to fall. I started toward him, and the words flashed before me, "Have no fear." Presently he opened his eyes, and as he looked at me, 2 rays of light streamed through them. It was an amazing experience. It was fortunate indeed that we did not fear. In a moment, the bell sounded, calling us to the crystal chamber. As we came to the large doors, they swung quietly open, and the most ravishing music greeted us. At the organ was seated the most beautiful, masterful presence I have ever seen or imagined, and another, its twin ray, sat at the piano. No words can possibly do justice to those harmonies, for the music reached into the very depths of one's soul. We were not aware anyone else was in the room until the music ceased, and then we realized that 10 of the ascended masters stood in our midst. Just beyond them were Nada and Pearl, enveloped in a brilliant light that extended around them for about 3 feet. Another glorious flood of music followed, and suddenly in the midst of it, we all turned toward the door. Our beloved Saint Germain and Daniel Rayborn entered, with a beautiful Lady Master between them. As they came in, the music ceased, and Nada and Rex exclaimed, "Mother!" The next instant, both were clasped in her arms. In a few moments, Rex came to where I stood, and putting his arm around me, drew me to his mother, saying, "This is our wonderful friend who came to us a few weeks ago. We could hardly love him more." "My dear son," said his mother, "I have observed much that has taken place, and I am quite as grateful as you for such a true friend to my loved ones. I join the family in the great love which they extend so sincerely. I see you reciprocate it radiantly. May God's choicest blessings, love, and illumination enfold you always." All came forward and extended greetings like one beautiful, happy family. We suddenly felt an intense vibration, and looking up, we saw the master, who had been playing the organ, floating near the ceiling above us. It really seemed as if we were in the etheric realms instead of in the heart of a mountain on the earth. Presently she stood on the floor beside us. We were presented to her as Daphne, the child of light. We met Arion, her companion at the piano, and Saint Germain remarked that they were from the 7th sphere, having long ago reached the ascended state, completing their journey through human experience. Daphne and Arion came directly up to Nada and Rex, a great inner attunement forming the bond between them. They asked if the children would sing to the accompaniment of the organ and piano. They replied in the affirmative, and Daphne asked Nada what they were going to sing. "Love's light eternal," she said. "Rex and I wrote it." Daphne touched Nada's forehead a moment. "I have it," she said, and stepping to the instrument began. The children's voices were splendid before, but now there was a new power and beauty that was wonderful. Even the ascended masters expressed their appreciation. Someone asked Nada's mother to sing, and from the moment she began, a thrill of joy filled every heart as she poured out her great love to bless all through the song. It surely was the glory of heaven poured out upon earth in a shower of happiness. It was at this point that Saint Germain asked us to come into the electrical laboratory. When we had assembled around the atomic accelerator, he requested each one who had not raised his body to follow in turn and take his place in the chair, beginning with Daniel Rayborn, Pearl, Rex, Nada, and myself. "The mighty I Am Presence within each will tell you when to leave the chair," he instructed, "as no word should be spoken while the raising process is in operation." Daphne took her place facing the chair, and Saint Germain directly opposite. Rayborn seated himself, and a dazzling blue-white light blazed forth crystal clear. In perhaps 10 minutes, his flesh looked perfectly transparent. Slowly, a current of vivid blue moved up his spine and met the combined currents of the pineal gland, pituitary body, and the base of the brain, forming into a dazzling golden light, encircled by the most vivid blue I have ever seen. Then, by the very power of his own light, he arose and stepped forth from the chair, and as he did so, he seemed to float rather than walk. Pearl took her place in the chair. In less than 5 minutes, her form completely disappeared, so dazzling was the white light. This lasted possibly 10 minutes before she emerged from it. As she stepped down from the chair, the light followed, as if to caress her. Next came Rex. At first there was a glow of soft rose light, gradually changing into gold blue and then an intense white, with a glorious tint of blue still remaining. His form did not entirely disappear from view, but in about 10 minutes he stepped down from the chair, his eyes ablaze with the light of the mighty I Am Presence. Nada seated herself, and instantly the light became a dazzling sun, and her form completely disappeared within its wondrous glow. Presently she seemed to float, so lightly did she step from the chair, and rays of intense light continued to dart forth from the upper part of her body for some time. Lastly, I took my place. I felt 1,000,000 points of light pierce my flesh, as the greater force from within the electrons was released through the atomic structure. At first, I wanted to jump right out of the body I was using and claim the full freedom of my mighty I Am Presence. Soon, I became adjusted to it, and then a feeling of the most joyous exaltation filled my entire being, a sensation no words can describe. I poured a mighty love to humanity, and a prayer that all might be ready to receive this same glorious illumination, because no one can recede once they have entered into the light in this manner. In this tremendously exalted state, I consciously sent forth the mighty power of divine love to bless and illumine humanity more powerfully than I had ever conceived possible. If 75% of mankind could understand, be raised to this marvelous state, and consciously send forth the mighty power of divine love for 7 days, the earth and all its inhabitants would be transformed. There would be no more selfishness, hence no more strife. Would to God that day were at hand now. Our beloved Master asked us to return to the crystal chamber. We did so and found the exact number of chairs for those present, placed so they faced the eastern wall of that wondrous room. Saint Germain stepped to a cord hanging upon the wall and pulled it. The wall covering drew apart and disclosed a polished surface about 12 by 20 feet. This, he explained, is a cosmic mirror in which any individual, having reached a certain height of attainment, may see his complete series of lives, the cause and effect of his conscious activity, and how the gradual process of mastery is attained. Then, seeing the divine plan of his future, he will understand how to cooperate with the great cosmic forward impulse, and so tremendously increase his power of service and usefulness by consciously expanding the love, light, wisdom, and power of the mighty I Am presence through himself. 5 of the chairs had been placed directly in front of the center of the mirror. In these, Saint Germain seated Rayborn, Pearl, Rex, Nada, and myself in the order mentioned. "I ask you all to keep your eyes closed," he said, "except the one whom I shall indicate to do the observing, and at no time allow yourselves to speak. I will speak the name of each one in turn as the preceding one finishes. I wish you," he said, indicating me, "to follow the observation throughout, because you are here to observe and understand all that transpires, so this knowledge may be given to the world. The others are here for their own individual growth. I am only permitted to chronicle fragments of the impersonal activities of what was revealed." As each one's name is pronounced, the Master instructed, he is to throw his own soul's light into the mirror, hold it there unwaveringly, and calmly observe the results, no matter what appears. Daniel Rayborn. Immediately, a spot of sapphire blue light appeared upon the milky white surface of the mirror and steadily expanded until it became crystal clear. Then Saint Germain explained, "Life after life appears, some in very great detail, others showing the terrific struggle of the outer self against the certain advance and expansion of the great inner light. This may be retarded, but never prevented from attaining its ultimate eternal victory and dominion. In some cases, century after century and life after life pass with but very little progress because of the stubbornness of the outer self. When it becomes weary enough of the husks of existence, the unreality of things, and earnestly and gladly calls to the mighty I Am presence, then all barriers disappear, and its great inner light is enabled to express more and more perfection. Thus at last is full mastery attained." The screen revealed Rayborn's experiences, including even those of his present life and our recent association. "You see," he went on, "an extension has been granted to this good brother until he has finished certain outer work, and the children are through school. These extensions are only given where it is possible to raise the atomic structure of the physical body into the electronic. When this takes place, he will be united with his beautiful twin ray, the mother of Rex and Nada. Then will they reveal their true service through the mighty magic presence of the I Am, as their radiance grows brighter and brighter. At an appointed time, they will come forth with their ascended master authority and serve in their visible, tangible, ascended bodies, holding positions as great teachers of the light in high governmental offices, being direct messengers of the most high living God." The surface of the mirror returned to white, and Saint Germain said, "Pearl." A violet spot of light appeared, expanded, and covered the mirror with a wonderful radiance. The entire action was very different. Out of the many lives shown, there were only 3 in which the outer self rebelled against the light. Both masculine and feminine embodiments were revealed. Many times she was a very earnest teacher, of the truth to humanity. In one, she was an eyewitness to the crucifixion of Jesus. In another, she watched the burning at the stake of Joan of Arc. Then came her meeting and union with Rex, the final illumining and raising of their bodies, and the ministry that was to follow. It even showed them always in touch with their parents as beloved friends. No longer in the parental relationship. Again, the light faded. The surface of the mirror became white, and Saint Germain said, "Rex." A disk of intense rose-colored light quickly covered the mirror, and a long series of lives followed. These gave also both masculine and feminine embodiments. In 3 of them he was a great teacher of the truth of life. Many times he was an officer of importance in large armies. In those he was very active, especially during the time that the Greek civilization reached its apex. Another was shown in France, and still another in England during the time of the American Revolution. Here, the Master called our attention to an unusual condition. Rex's growth, he said, has been so steady that he has had no very great struggle in any particular embodiment. This is a very rare thing. When one considers the hundreds and sometimes thousands of embodiments that souls pass through in order to gain their eternal victory and dominion. In 3 consecutive lives, he was a renowned scientist and made many remarkable discoveries that blessed mankind. We now come to his present life, which is just well started. Here is the close of his school days, his union with Pearl, and the call to go to the masters in the Himalayas and the Far East. This will cover a period of at least 2 years. Notice the marvelous, vivid description of certain work that he will do in the future, in which he will play a very prominent part in the government of America. Then, with a flash, all vanished from the mirror, and Saint Germain said, "Nada." Almost instantly, a light like a sun covered the mirror, and as it cleared, Saint Germain continued, "Here is a most remarkable revelation of hundreds of lives. The embodiment showing intense activity in which there seems always to have been a sincere, dominant desire for the light. In the particular life now being revealed, it shows the meeting between Nada and Bob Singleton when they were together on Atlantis. At that time, he was a nephew of one of the great master rulers. In another, Nada was a priestess in Egypt. In the one now being shown, she was a daughter of an Arab sheikh, and for many lives has been under my care and instruction. This is her present life, showing our meeting, her contact with Bob, and the sudden end of her schoolwork. She will take up definite cosmic work, which Bob is not quite ready to do. Notice, as he awakens fully, the great light that blazes forth. Then they will become great teachers of divine wisdom. As you see, Bob will raise his body as well as the others with the assistance of the ascended masters. Their future work from the ascended state is beautiful indeed. Saint Germain next spoke my name. Instantly I threw my soul light upon the mirror, and a revolving light, like a great diamond in the center, quickly expanded to the outer rim. Far back in the past, I saw my real self, the mighty magic presence of the great I Am, utilizing one body after another through a long series of lives. 2 of these were on Atlantis, one as an engineer of mining and aerial navigation. As the second came on the screen, he explained, "In the last Atlantean embodiment, for the first time since going forth into incarnation, you came into contact with your twin ray. In Egypt, You are a secret teacher of the one God in Rome. You are a centurion during the life and ministry of Jesus, closing that embodiment in what is now Great Britain. Again in England during the 12th century, and the following life was in a feminine body in France. Now comes your present life, again in perfect union with your twin ray. This goes into the distant future when, in the great family of ascended masters, you will still minister through divine love to those on earth, assisting in their upward progress. The blessing of divine service is a great privilege, but remember always that your first service, the greatest service that can possibly exist, is the complete acknowledgement and acceptance of your mighty I Am Presence, the mighty light within and above you. I wish you all to remember especially what I am about to say on service, for it is one of the most misunderstood subjects. Many people consider various things as service, which in reality are not service at all, but mere slavery to the human creation of themselves or others. The performance of physical acts for gratifying and satisfying of the limitations of the human self is not service, never was and never will be. That is slavery to human creation and the treadmill of mankind's limitations. Please clear your minds once and for all time completely of that idea as a concept of service. I tell you frankly and truly, it is not. One of the ascended Lady Masters has said, "The first service for any of mankind is praise and adoration of the God Self, the great Master within each individual. In thus fixing the attention of the outer mind on the only giver of anything good we can ever receive, it raises the outer mind into the full acceptance of the supreme conquering power, anchored within the human form which, after all, is divine. If, in man's service to man, he failed to hold his attention fixed on the supreme source of love, wisdom, and power, then he has failed in that service to a large degree. If in the quest of things in the outer senses, he becomes so occupied that the conscious attention becomes fixed on the manifestation instead of the supreme presence that produces it, then again he has missed the mark. Again, if in man's great desire to serve, the overwhelming desire to serve his fellow man causes him to neglect to keep his attention fixed on the supreme producer, then that service too has failed to a large degree. The only true service is in holding the attention and acceptance so firmly fixed upon the great Master within, the only producer, that the outer mind becomes so filled with the inner presence that naturally each activity of the day becomes, without considering it, the perfect divine service of the moment. Then the great Master within, the mighty I Am Presence, is always conducting the outer activity until the entire action becomes perfection expressed. The outer self, until fully awakened, has periods in which it unknowingly wants to strut its vanity and abilities over its fellow men. This always invites a shock of some kind to shake up the outer self until it becomes aware of what it is doing. Then it wildly looks about for its source of power, which it has either forgotten or willfully pushed aside. For in our compulsory choice and the use of the free will, this great Master within will not intrude itself unless welcomed and invited joyously to do so. I say joyously because the more joy we can put into the acceptance of the mighty indwelling power, the quicker manifestation follows. Our acceptance is a command which must be obeyed. It cannot be denied. The attention and acceptance must be held long enough, firmly enough, and steadily enough until the shell of the outer self is completely shorn of the idea that it has any power of its own. The outer mind cannot argue against the fact that all the energy it uses comes from the great presence within, no matter how that energy is applied. Never let any desire for service deprive you of the needed time, undivided, to fix your attention and acceptance on your great Master within, knowing then that you will naturally give the right service and do the right thing. This is the law of true divine service, which says forever to the personal self, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." This is the whole of the law applied. Footnote: This instruction concerning service was originally given forth by one of the Lady Masters, also known as Nada, who raised her body 2,700 years ago and who does very transcendent work for the humanity of this earth, as well as a greater work which she does in very much higher spheres. It was Saint Germain's request that it be put into the magic presence at this point, for he gives it to all his students, and has placed it here that everyone who reads this book may have the benefit of her radiation, as well as his own, and profit thereby. The personal self has absolutely nothing of its own, for it comes into embodiment without even clothes, and unless the physical body is illumined and raised, it passes through so-called death and leaves even the body behind. So the personal self really owns nothing. It cannot deny the fact that all it has is loaned to it by the great Master Presence, no matter how much it misuses the marvelous gifts of life. Keep your attention to the heights. The light and the struggle of the outer self will soon cease. You will find yourselves steadily rising into that glorified ascended state where the joy of divine service so far transcends earthly comprehension that there are no words to describe it. This discloses the revelations of individual growth through hundreds of lives and earthly experience. It is a rare occurrence and privilege for any student to be shown this, and it is only permitted where the individual has reached a height of attainment and inner strength that will enable him to observe the experiences of the past without receiving suggestions or being in the least influenced by them, no matter how terrific they may have been. Only a tiny fragment of all that passed upon that mirror is recorded here, for the experiences of one individual alone through hundreds of embodiments would fill many volumes. Saint Germain then drew the covering over the mirror, and taking his place in front of his guests, gave a most marvelous discourse. Much of it was private instruction and information for those present concerning their own work. I will give only a very small portion of it here. "It is my wish," he said, addressing Pearl, Nada, and Rex, "that Pearl return with Nada to her school and take up certain studies which I will indicate for the year until her graduation. At the end of that time, I shall be very happy to have you accompany me to the Far East, where you are to remain for 2 years and make certain contacts which it is necessary for you to have. At that time, Bob will be ready to go with you. I will see that dependable men are brought to the mine and ranch. 1 year from today, July 28th, 1931, we shall all meet again in the Cave of Symbols, and Daniel Rayborn will complete the raising into his electronic body and enter perfect freedom with his beloved twin ray, Nada, the child of song. Each of you will receive training and instruction from time to time as you require it, and this will be your path to freedom. You all know there is but one source to look to for anything, and that is your mighty I Am present within and around you, to whom you can call, and you will never fail to get a response. From it you may receive without limit courage, strength, power, protection, and guidance that will take you through any ordeal you may ever encounter. I have not observed any weakness within you, otherwise you would not be here. Trials will arise from most unexpected places. You will, of course, remember that the sincere student is never off guard. The inner light will never fail unless you deliberately turn from it. A thing I trust none of you will ever do. Now, will you join me around the crystal table? We still have another service to render our beloved brother Bob. When all were in their places, he asked Nada to call Bob with the inner light. In about 10 minutes, he stood on the table before us. Rex extended his hand, and Bob stepped lightly down and clasped Nada in his arms. She led him forward and presented Bob to her mother, who had returned to the audience chamber with Daniel Rayborn. She looked at him steadily for a moment, and with the sweetest smile, held out her arms and embraced him. As she did so, the light within her blazed forth with such intensity that their bodies were hardly visible. "My beloved son, in whom I am well pleased," she said, releasing him, "I congratulate you both on this discovery and the love that enshrines your divine union. The greatest blessing my power of the ascended state can give enfolds you both forever. Always remember that pure, unselfish love and devotion form the open pathway to the ascended state." Nada asked Daphne and Arion to play again, and they assented. When they took their places at the organ and piano, a dazzling light floated above them near the ceiling. As they struck the first chords of a beautiful melody, a glorious tenor voice burst forth from within the light. The control of the voice was perfect. Its range seemed to be almost without limit. Here we were listening to a being we did not see, yet whose voice was the most magnificent proof of the presence and its great gifts to mankind. When the first song was finished, the organ, piano, and voice all modulated into America. Instantly, everyone arose, not only in tribute to America, but to the great master, whose wondrous voice thrilled us all. "America," said Saint Germain, "means so much more than most of her inhabitants dare to dream, for she is the heart center of the spiritual progress on this planet. It is in America that the firm foundation of the cosmic Christ, the mighty I Am Presence, will find anchor in the hearts of mankind. This great all-powerful light shall intensify and expand until not a vestige of selfishness or political intrigue will remain or be remembered. Many amazing things will take place in the coming years, until mankind will truly realize that the time of miracles is not past, but is forever with us. We will then understand that they are but the results of obedience to the great divine plan of life. We are just beginning to enter an age of so-called miracles, which reveal the glories the magic presence holds waiting for its children. America is the Grail, the cup for this earth that carries the light of the cosmic Christ, which shall illumine the earth and set it in divine order by the power of the mighty I Am Presence. Bob was so happy. He asked if he might be permitted to meet our beloved master in the visible, tangible body before the school season opened. And Saint Germain replied, "It may be sooner than you expect, for your blessed friends will be at the mine shortly, and I will meet with you all at that time. Let us say the 10th of August. Now, Bob, you must return to your physical body." Instantly the two radiant masters stood on each side of him. Bob said good night to his sweetheart and those present, and they immediately disappeared. The rest of us gathered around Nada, the mother, who embraced each one of her loved ones. "It is time we must part," she said, "but on this occasion it is in joyous rapture instead of sorrow, as at our first parting. I wish you to return to your chambers," Saint Germain directed, "and rest until 2 o'clock tomorrow, and then return home. Proper food will be served when you are ready. It is my privilege to escort this beloved child of song," indicating Rex's and Nada's mother, "to the sphere where she is sojourning." We watched them closely and saw the two forms begin to fade from view, and in about 3 minutes they completely disappeared. Such is the power of the Ascended Master, to come and go in the tangible body and make it visible or invisible at will. In the intense interest of watching Nada's mother and our beloved Master disappear, we did not notice that the other Ascended Masters had gone also, leaving only Daniel, Rayborn, Pearl, Nada, Rex, and myself. As we looked at each other, I do not think there was a dry eye in the whole group, for tears of the greatest gratitude and joy we had ever known filled our eyes and hearts to overflowing. We returned to our chambers and found the most appetizing dinner awaiting us. There was a delicious nut loaf, an amber liquid wonderfully refreshing, and a combination salad made of things we had never eaten before. As we lay down, the brilliant light in the room gently faded out, until only a soft, bluish-white radiance, like a moonlight, remained. Unless one has experienced something of this kind, it is not possible to describe the feeling of rest and quiet such light conveys. The next thing we knew, we heard the etheric bell sound through our chambers, and when I looked at my watch, I saw it was 1 o'clock. We put on our robes and sat down to the small crystal table in our room, laden with luscious fruits, among them peaches and strawberries, such as I've never seen in the outer world. There was a substance like heavy whipped cream for the fruit, and every spoonful sent an electric charge through the body that gave one the feeling of strength, courage, power, and confidence, which it is impossible to explain. As we finished our repast, a slip of paper asking us to come to the crystal chamber at once floated down to the table. The great doors opened at our approach, and as we entered, Saint Germain and the others who had already arrived greeted us. "Our work here is finished for the present," he said, as soon as we were seated. "For you have each leaped ahead in growth very rapidly, because of previous attainment of which you are entirely unaware. Now you shall return to the ordinary routine and activity of the outer world, but you are no longer of it. Never again will the vibratory action of your minds and bodies be lowered to the point where they were before you entered the cave of symbols 3 days ago. Your friends will see and feel the change, but will not know its cause. They will always be restrained from asking personal questions. You may now wear your clothes of the outer world, but always keep your robes, as they are for your meditation and communion with the Ascended Masters. I have my own way of keeping in constant touch with you. If you will come with me as soon as you are ready, I will take you to the opening of the cave, as I must be in the Far East at 5 o'clock this afternoon. Henceforth, we are never separated." We returned in our hiking clothes, and Saint Germain led us to the entrance. We tried to express our gratitude, but he raised his hand for silence and said, "In the future, let us refrain from attempting to express what is already known to the others. We, I trust, have gone beyond the need of human conventions. I know the great love and gratitude in your hearts. My own love and gratitude is just as great as yours, that you have found the way into eternal light, freedom, and perfection. That I have been privileged to be of assistance is my sufficient reward. All is at the command of the magic presence within you, the mighty I Am presence of the universe." As he ceased speaking, his body grew less dense, became dim of outline, and finally disappeared completely before our very eyes. Our love and gratitude to beloved Saint Germain is boundless and eternal. Obedience to his slightest request is a command to us and a joy forever. He has helped mankind so continuously through the